We're going to get started. Okay. So the Mishnah says, we're on the Mishnah on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph. Elu divarim sheish lahem chazaka, ve'elu divarim she'ein lahem chazaka. Now this Mishnah is deliberately vague. I want to remind you that there are two types of demonstrations of ownership vis-a-vis the source of the property. Meaning that, as we've seen before, we've been talking up until now, in the recent past, we've been talking about being kind of something from Hefker. We talked about Nichsei Hager Shemes, the property of a ger who died without any heirs. We said that becomes Hefker, and a person can make a kinyan to demonstrate ownership and be kona that from Hefker. We also talked about how to demonstrate ownership when something is previously owned, and we know who the previous owner is. There you need a 3-year chazaka in order to establish the fact that the previous owner has relinquished ownership to the person who's currently occupying the property. Now, from here, from this Mishnah, it's not clear what kind of kinyan we're talking about. Are we talking about a person who's demonstrating ownership in order to take it away from the previous owner? Or are we talking about a demonstration of ownership when a person wants to acquire something from Hefker? That's deliberately left vague, but let's just read the Mishnah and then let's see where it takes us. The following actions will demonstrate a chazaka, and the following actions will demonstrate that there is no chazaka. Hayamamid behema b'chatzer tanur rechayim v'kirayim umigdal tarnagolim v'nosein umigadel tarnagolim, v'nosein zevalo b'chatzer eina chazaka. So the following things do not establish a chazaka of ownership. If a person brings animals into a place like a chatzar, into a courtyard, and they roam free, that's not a demonstration of ownership. If a person brings an oven or a mill, which is movable, into a courtyard and uses it there, that's not a demonstration of ownership. If a person brings his chickens into a courtyard, or if he brings a pile of dung for fertilizer, none of these things are demonstrations of ownership because, as the Rashbam explains, we talked about before, if you want to demonstrate ownership when you want to be kona something, you have to manipulate the actual soil. And here there's no manipulation of the actual soil. Avol, however, by contrast, asa mechitza lebehemto gabo asar tvachim, v'chein letanur v'chein lechirayim, if a person makes a fence on the property, so you're actually doing something with the land itself. So you make a fence that's 10 tfachim high in order to pen in your animals, or if you do the same thing for an oven or for a millstone, hichnas tarnagolim l'soch habayis, or if you bring, instead of bringing the chickens into a courtyard, you bring them into a house. And here, if there was going to be any objection to the acquisition, active acquisition, someone certainly would have spoken up in this case. And finally, if you dig a trench 3 tfachim deep to deposit your dung, or if you build a partition around the dung that's 3 tfachim high, so in all of these cases, you've either manipulated the soil or done something that is so intrusive that silence is an indication that you were the owner. So that's the ambiguity here in the Mishnah is, number one, from whom are you acquiring this? And number two, what is the issue? Is the issue the fact that I've manipulated the actual soil in order to demonstrate ownership? Or is the issue that I've done something that is so intrusive that if a person really didn't want me to become the owner, he would have complained? So there's a lot of ambiguity in this Mishnah, and let's see what kind of clarity we can get from the Gemara.
Rabbi, Kiraim underground pouring, right?
No, Kiraim is an above ground stove. The difference between a tanur and a Kiraim is a tanur has a place for 2 pots, and a Kiraim is only a place for 1. For kira is a place for 1 pot. Okay, or vice versa. Okay, let's take a look now at the Gemara. Maishna Reisha u'Maishna Seifa. What is the difference between the Reisha, where you cannot establish ownership through these actions, and the Seifa, where you do establish ownership? What's the difference? So Amar Ula, Kol she'ilu b'nichsei hager kana b'nichsei chavero kana, Kol she'ilu b'nichsei hager lo kana b'nichsei chavero lo kana. So Ula says, listen, Chever, we're talking about a case where you want to acquire something from the previous owner, and you want to demonstrate that you're the new owner. So just like we saw when it came to acquiring something from Hefker, you have to do a manipulation in the soil itself, in the land itself. That goes for everything that we're saying in the Seifa. And therefore, that's the difference between the Reish and the Seifa. So for example, bringing your animals onto a courtyard, you're not doing anything to the land itself, but building a fence on the courtyard, you're doing something in the land itself, and therefore, in order to show that you're the new owner, you have to do something in the soil itself. It doesn't matter that you're using the property in an intrusive way. That's not the criterion, according to Ula. The criterion is that you're doing something in the soil itself to demonstrate ownership, and that's the reason why you have effectively created a chazaka.
You learned at some point that if it was positive, then the owner might not complain about it.
That if it was positive?
He was doing something positive, he was planting a tree or doing
Well, it could be. I'm saying it's got to be something that is viewed as intrusive, right? If it's non-intrusive, or if the owner is happy with what you're doing because you're improving his land, and it doesn't demonstrate ownership, so then that's also okay.
The animals are eating the grass?
Not necessarily. We have no indication that they're eating anything. They may be grazing and eating weeds, and that's not something that an owner would necessarily worry about. Now, I just want you to hold further questions, because there's clearly ambiguity here, and that's why you have questions. But if you're patient, hopefully your questions will be answered as we move forward. Okay, so that seems to be what the Gemara is suggesting over here, that Ula is saying that we're talking about acquiring something from a party, from a previous owner who is still alive, and you want to be able to show ownership by doing this for 3 years on the property. You must do something to manipulate the soil as part of your 3-year chazaka. That seems to be what Ula is saying. Now, of course, one of the problems with Ula's statement is the fact that one of the things on the list that shows ownership is bringing the chickens into the house. You haven't done anything to manipulate the land of the house at all. So that's going to be somewhat problematic. The Gemara is not going to take up that issue right now, but it's going to ask an even better question. So, Maska Flor of Sheshas uklalahu, you mean to tell me that this is a fast and steady rule? Let me ask you a question. It doesn't seem to be consistent. When you want to be kona something from Hefker, I understand that your manipulation of the soil does an act of acquiring something from Hefker. But that's not always true when you want to show ownership from someone else's previously owned property. The example is that if you want to acquire something from Hefker, and it's a field that is completely fallow, and it's Hefker, all you have to do is do an act of digging, and that field immediately becomes yours, like we saw before. But if you want to show ownership of a field that was previously titled to somebody else, and you want to show that you're the new owner, you can't just simply dig a shovel full of dirt and then say, I'm sitting on the property for 3 years, and demonstrate ownership that way. That's not a demonstration of ownership. The only way you can demonstrate ownership when it's previously someone else's field is if you're consuming the payros of the field. You're doing something that's intrusive, and that is something that an owner would not want you to do. But what does he care if you take a shovel full of dirt from his property that's currently fallow? He's going to have to plant it and till the soil anyway, so what does he care? That's not a demonstration of ownership. So you see that there's an inconsistency here. You can't say whatever applies to being kind of something from Hefker is also a demonstrative of ownership. So, and I'll give you another example. And furthermore, if I consume peros on someone else's field for 3 years without his protest, so then that's a demonstration of my ownership. But if I consume peros from a Hefker field, that's not a demonstration of ownership, because I haven't done anything with the soil. I have to actually dig into the soil, do something with the soil. So you see that the two are apples and oranges. They're not comparable. So Ela Omer Rav Nachman Omer Rabba Bar Avua Hacha b'chatzer hashutfin askinon de b'ha'amada kedi lo kapti amachitza kapti. So the Gemara says, okay, you're right. Let's explain what our Mishnah really is talking about. Our Mishnah is talking about a courtyard that is owned by Reuven and Shimon jointly, two partners. Okay? And Shimon wants to be able to demonstrate that he has bought out Reuven and now is the sole proprietor, sole owner of the previously jointly owned chatzir. How is this done? So that's where our Mishnah is talking about. Our Mishnah is saying that to bring in my animals, if I'm Shimon, to bring in my animals into the chatzir, that's not a demonstration that I bought out Reuven, because a partner doesn't mind if his partner brings in the animals into the chatzir. So Shimon is not demonstrating ownership. But for Shimon to build the fence on a property that is jointly owned without first consulting with Reuven, that's a demonstration of sole proprietorship, because a partner would not allow his fellow partner to build something on the property without his consent. So therefore, that's a demonstration of sole proprietorship, and that's a demonstration that the fact that Reuven has not protested for 3 years is a demonstration that Shimon is the sole owner of the chatzar. So frek the Gemara, uvahamada kedilo kapti, you mean to tell me that a partner doesn't mind if his partner brings his animals onto a property? V'hatnan hashutfin shenadru hana zemizeh asrun likanes l'chatzir. There's a Mishnah having to do with the laws of Nidarim. And the Mishnah says as follows. If you have two partners that own a property, that own a courtyard, and each one takes a neder that I'm not going to benefit from you. Shimon takes a neder, he's not going to benefit from Reuven. Reuven takes a neder, he's not going to benefit from Shimon. So now the Mishnah says they're not allowed to get any use, neither of them can get any use from the courtyard. Why? Because the courtyard is jointly owned by both of them. And the Gemara's question is as follows. If a person doesn't mind that his partner brings his animals onto the property, then he's basically divested himself from any claim of preventing his partner from bringing his animals on the property. So therefore, that partner, Shimon, if he brings his animals on the property, is not in violation of his neder of benefiting from Reuven's property. Since Reuven has divested himself from that use of the property to the point where he doesn't mind that Shimon brings his animals onto the property, so then Shimon is not taking any benefit from Reuven by allowing his animals to graze. So according to what you've just said, there should be no prohibition for the partners, even after they've taken a neder, to go and use the courtyard for personal use, to let their animals graze. And yet you see the Mishnah still says it's forbidden. That's the question the Gemara is asking. If you're telling me that partners don't mind if the other partner brings his animals on the property, then why, when they take a neder against each other, can they not use the property at all? So the Gemara answers, Ela Omer Rav Nachman Omer Rabba Bar Avua Hacha berachba shalachorei batim askinon de beha'amada kedilo kapti ve'amachitza kapti. So Rabba Bar Avua says the difference between our Mishnah and that Mishnah by Nedarim is as follows. The Mishnah by Nedarim is talking about a front yard, a front plot in front of a house. There, if it's jointly owned by two partners, each partner does not want the other partner to let his animals graze and to use it exclusively. Why? Because each partner can claim, listen, I need that for utility. I need to load and unload stuff. I need to use that because that's prime real estate in front of my house. So of course you cannot bring your animal there. That's what the Mishnah in Nedarim is talking about. If we take a neder from each other, then neither of us can use it, because then we're benefiting directly from something that normally would not be relinquished to us. Our Mishnah is talking about the backyard. In the backyard, there's no necessity, there's no need that either partner has to use it for their utilities. And therefore, that's why there's no kapeda. That's why the partners don't mind if the other partner brings his animals on. And that's why the Mishnah says that it's not demonstrative of chazaka. So Rav Papa Amar Idi v'Idi b'chatzer ashutven v'ika dekapti v'ika delo kapti gabi mamona l'kula gabi yisura l'chumra. Rav Papa says, no, you don't have to say that. You don't have to say we're talking about two different kinds of property. One is a courtyard and the other one is a backyard. They're both talking about courtyards, which are prime real estate. The reason why there's a difference between our Mishnah and the Mishnah in Nedarim is because we're talking about two different halachas. When it comes to the halacha of establishing ownership, the person who's been there for 3 years has to prove that his actions are demonstrative of exclusive ownership. The other partner could always say, that's not demonstrative, I'm just a guy who doesn't mind. You see, here's the thing, that when you go into partnership with someone, everyone's personality is a little bit different. Some people stand on ceremony, and some people are very easygoing. Some people mind if you bring your animals on, and some people don't mind if you bring your animals on. So therefore, the partner who says, hey, listen, you're not the sole owner, I'm still a partner, the guy says, well, then why didn't you protest when I had my animals on the property? He says, because I'm an easygoing guy. And so therefore, the burden of proof is on the fellow who brought his animals on to show that he's the sole owner. But in the case of Nedarim, where the stakes are that if I get Hana'ah from my partner, I'm in violation of an Isser Deoraisa, so therefore I have to be Machmir, and I have to say, well, maybe he does mind. It's possible that he doesn't mind, in which case I'm not violating the neder by bringing my animals on, but it could be that he does mind. And if that's the case, I don't have a right to bring my animals on. Ravina Amar La'olam Lo Kapti, V'hamani Rabbi Eliezer. Ravina says, I have a different answer. Really, partners don't mind. No one minds. If you're partners in a property, partners don't mind if the one partner brings his animals on the property. Why then is there a violation of the neder? Because that mission in the Nedarim goes like Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya Rabbi Eliezer Omer Afilu Vitur Asr B'Mudar Hana. Rabbi Eliezer has a unique shita that argues with the Chachamim. He says that if two people if I take a neder from you, like I take a neder that I'm not going to benefit from Shloimi, then even something that Shloimi normally wouldn't mind anyone to use, I'm not allowed to get any benefit from. And that's why the Mishnah in Nedarim says that even though normally partners are mivater, partners are very easygoing and don't mind if their partner brings their animals on, but nevertheless, I would still be in violation of my neder according to Rabbi Eliezer if I benefit from Shloimi's property, because according to Rabbi Eliezer, even when the other party is completely easygoing, L'maisa, you're still benefiting. So it's considered to be deriving benefit from the other person. The example in Maseches Nedarim that talks about this issue is the following case. Let's say a person is a shopkeeper. He owns a bagel shop, and I take a neder that I'm not going to get any benefit from him. Does that mean I'm not allowed to buy his bagels? No, I can buy his bagels. When I say I'm not going to get any benefit from you, it means I'm not going to get any free benefit from you. Right? That's really what the neder is. But if I'm purchasing bagels, then I'm not benefiting from you. I'm paying you for whatever benefit I'm getting. So it's not considered to be a violation of my neder. But what happens if this fellow who owns the bagel shop sells a baker's dozen? Which means that if you buy a dozen bagels, you get a 13th bagel for free. So the Chachamim are of the opinion, since he offers that offer to everyone on the street, then you're also not in violation of the neder if you get a 13th bagel, because he's basically selling 13 bagels for the price of 12. So you're not getting any additional benefit. But Rabbi Eliezer disagrees. He says, no, that 13th bagel you're not allowed to benefit from. He says, because even though the baker is basically throwing it in as a gift, but he would do that, even though he would do that for anyone anyway, it's still called you benefiting from it. And the same thing would apply over here. Even though normally a partner would for sure give permission and forego any claims that he has against a partner to let his animals come on the field, the fact that I, the partner, am benefiting from it is a violation of the neder. Okay. Next. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Bena'a, Bakol Shutven Ma'akven Ze'ezeh Chutz Min HaKvisa, She'ein Darkan Shel Benos Yisrael Lihispazos Al HaKvisa. Now, this Gemara really is not directly related to our previous discussion, but it's related in the sense that we were talking about a property owned by partners. That's what we've established our Mishnah is talking about. And even though normally partners don't mind, you're allowed to assume that a partner doesn't mind for you to bring your animals on. But if a partner actively voices his objection, he is allowed to stop his partner from bringing things that are exclusively to the benefit of that other partner. So, for example, even though the Mishnah says that bringing your animals onto the property, or bringing your chickens, or bringing your millstone onto the property is not a demonstration of ownership, but a partner can also protest and say, I don't want your chickens on our property. However, so a partner can stop his partner from bringing anything on the property except for one thing. He cannot prevent his partner's daughter from doing the laundry in the courtyard if that's the only property that that partner has available to him. And the reason is because if the only alternative is for his daughter or his wife to do the laundry by the river in a public area, that's a bizayon. That's a disgrace to his wife, because you're causing his wife or his daughter to expose by rolling up her sleeve. She's exposing herself publicly, and that's not something that we will allow. We don't want a daughter of Israel to do that. So therefore, even though normally a partner can say, I don't want any activity on our jointly owned property, but laundry he's not allowed to stop if the claim of the partner is, there's no other place for my daughter to do the laundry. The Gemara then says, based on this following pasuk, we have this similar idea of you have to avoid walking past women when they're doing the laundry because there's a lack of tznius. Va'otzem einav me'ra'os bara. There's a pasuk in Yeshaya that praises the righteous man for concealing his eyes from seeing evil. And on that, Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Zeh she'ein mistakel b'nashim b'shah sha'omdos ala kvisa. This refers to a person who does not look at the women when they're doing the laundry by the river. Now, heichi dam. So the Gemara says, now, listen, you have to explain what you're talking about. Idi ika darka achrisa rasha. Why are you calling this person righteous? Look, if there's another way for him to get from work to home, and he dafka chooses to take the river route because it's the scenic route, because he gets to watch the women doing the laundry. So what are you telling me? Oh, he's such a tzaddik because he closed his eyes. What are you talking about? He's a Russia because he dafka chose that place in the hopes of catching a glimpse while he was covering his eyes, right? So idaleka darka achrisa anusu. And if there's no other path to go, so then why are you telling me that he's obligated to close his eyes, or that he's a tzaddik for closing his eyes? Like the Rashbam says, im nistakel derech alichuso va'ones rachmana patre. So he says, like, obviously he's not obligated to close his eyes because he'll trip and fall. Why does the pasuk require him to close his eyes? So la'olam deleka darka achrisa va'afilu hachem yiboyle lemeinas nafshe. So the answer is that the pasuk is praising this person because even though there really is no other way for him to go, there's the only way for him to get from point A to point B, which is his home, is to go by the river. And there are women who are doing the laundry by the river, so he doesn't have any choice. He's got to walk past them. The reason why he's called righteous is because he goes the extra step, even though technically he's exempt from covering his eyes, because he says, I got to see where I'm going, but he does everything that is within his power to divert his eyesight away from the women doing the laundry, even though he has a valid reason to look in that direction. And that's what the pasuk is praising about this person. Ba'amine Reb Yochanan meRebbi Bina. Now, this Gemara is tangential to what we just learned because it also discusses Reb Yochanan and Rebbi Bina, who we were talking about before. Because Rabbi Yochanan would said, Bishum Rebbi Bina, you can stop your partner from doing something except for the laundry. So this same two people, Rabbi Yochanan and Rebbi Bina, talking about modesty issues is a continuation. The question was asked, Cholok shel Talmud Chacham Ketzah. What is considered to be a modest garb for the underclothing, the undergarment? You know, normally a person would wear a tunic, which would be like the shirt, and then he'd have an over jacket, you know, just like we wear today. You have a shirt and you have a jacket. So what is the modest or appropriate attire for a Talmud Chacham for his shirt? So kol she'ein b'saru nira mitachtav. As long as you don't see his skin underneath his garment, so then that's an appropriate attire. Talish shel Talmud Chacham Ketzah. What about the overgarment? Let's say the jacket or the coat. What should that look like? Kol she'en chaluko nira mitachtov tefach. So we don't expect it to go all the way down. If it's the guy's wearing a tunic as his shirt, we don't expect the overcoat to go all the way down to where the bottom of the tunic is, but we expect it to go at least within a tefach of where the tunic, as far down as the tunic goes. Shulchan shel Talmud Chacham Ketzah. Now let's describe the table of a Talmud Chacham. Now here it's important to note, there's a certain decorum that we expect of a Talmud Chacham, that everything that he does is hygienically clean, is organized, and is orderly. So the table of a Talmud Chacham, what does it look like? Shnei shlishe gedil ushlish galoi va'olav ka'aros v'yerek v'tabato mibachutz. The way that we expect it to look is as follows. We expect that the tablecloth, which is where people place their bekalach, their rolls, their bread, should be on the tablecloth, and the table is covered. 2/3 of the table is covered with tablecloth, and the last third is free of a tablecloth because that's where you put down the pots of food and the moist foods. And the reason why you don't want that to rest on the tablecloth is because the pots will moisten the tablecloth by people serving themselves from the pot. The stuff will spill onto the tablecloth, and then that'll get the bread wet. And we don't want that to happen. So therefore we have a tablecloth that only is under the parts where people are dining and eating their bread. And people will go over to where the pots are, serve themselves, and come back to the place where the tablecloth is. But notice that that it's only at the end of the table where the pots are that have moisture in them. And furthermore, the ring of the table is on the outside. Now, what do we mean by the ring of the table? So the Gemara is describing a practice that is now becoming more in vogue as people have less and less space, living space in urban areas. I don't know, you've seen these videos where all the furniture is compressible because people live in very small apartments. So in the times of the Gemara, the table wasn't out 24 hours a day. The table was like, these push-up beds, where when you wake up in the morning, you push it back up into the
A Murphy bed, I think.
Is that what it's called? So they had these tables that had a ring on the end of the table, and when you were done eating, you would hang up the table with the ring on a hook on the wall. And that's how you stored it during the day. So you'd have more living space. So where is that ring? It's probably like an iron ring. It's on the outside so that it doesn't impede on the eating space of the people who are dining around the tablecloth.
So we have picture, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, if one of us, we have a picture.
You have a picture? Okay, good. So now the Gemara says, Tanya tabatu mi bifnim. But wait a minute, there's another brisa that says that the ring is supposed to be on the inside where the people are dining. So the Gemara says, Lo kasha hadaika yanuka hadaleka yanuka. So the answer is, it depends if there are kids or not. If there are kids at the table and the Bava Basra has this little pitzel on his lap, the kid's going to grab the ring, he's going to want to play with it, and he's going to shake the whole table and spill everything. So therefore you put the ring on the outside. But if there's no small children, you put the ring on the inside. Another answer could be, it's not the criterion is not whether there are small children or not, but rather whether there are servants who are serving the meal. If there are no servants serving the meal, then put the ring on the outside so it's not getting in the way of the diners. But if there's a guy who's acting as the waiter, so better put the ring on the inside because the diners will know how to avoid it, and we're worried if you put it on the outside, he'll constantly be bumping into the ring and will spill stuff. But another answer could be is that in all cases, we could be talking about where there's a waiter, but if it's during the daytime where the waiter can clearly see the ring on the outside, you can leave the ring on the outside so it's not intrusive. But at nighttime, if he's serving and the lights are dim, so then the waiter is not going to see the ring, and therefore you should keep it on the inside, and the diners will have to be careful. So this is all the table of a Talmud Chacham. But now let's contrast it to the table of an Am Haaretz. V'shel ha'am haaretz doima lemedura ukederos makifos osa. So the Rashbam explains it's like a bonfire with everything surrounding it, around the bonfire. What that means is that the Am Haaretz's table is where the tablecloth is in the center of the table, and all the pots are on the periphery of the table on the outside surrounding it. Now, why is that considered to be less organized? Why is that considered to be more disorderly? And the Rashbam doesn't explain, but it seems to me, based on the next Gemara that we're going to see, is that it requires people who want to get a piece of bread to reach over these pots, which are serving pots. And you know, like you have a salad guard when you go to buy something, or a sneeze guard, is that what it's called? Because you don't want people sneezing in the salad when they go to the buffet, right? So if everyone's got to walk to get a piece of bread, they've got to reach over the pots. It's not hygienic. It's not betamt. If everything is at the end of the table and you got the diners on one place and you got the buffet on the other place, so then people will go over, they'll pick up their food, and they're not going to be reaching over the pots like that. But if people have to reach over the pots, it's not hygienic, it's not nice, and who knows, someone will sneeze or drool into one of the pots, and that's not going to be, that's the Am Haaretz's table. What? Something to learn something to learn about for a kiddush. Yeah. Sometimes the kiddushes are quite unappetizing because of that very reason. Especially when someone talks with their mouth full, and anyway, we won't go there. Let us go on. So, Mita shel Talmidei Chachamim Keitza. So, what is the bed of a Talmud Chacham like? And this is why that's the reason why I interpreted the table in this way, because as you'll see, the bed is a similar discussion. Kol she'ein tachteha ela sandalin b'yamos hacham min olim b'yamos hageshamim. He says the bed of a Talmud Chacham, underneath it, the only thing that he stores underneath are sandals in the summer and shoes in the winter. That's the only thing he keeps under the bed. But by contrast, v'shel am haaretz doim la'otzer balus. But he says, but the bed of it, am haaretz, is like a cornucopia storehouse. In other words, there's like everything is under the bed. He's got his comic book collection, and he's got his old. What else has he got?
Mad Magazine.
His Mad Magazine. I'm saying, well, what else is he? What else do you keep under your bed that a person could keep?
Food.
He's got food under the bed. He's got his children's clothes under the bed. He's got the videos under the bed. He's got the DVDs under the bed. He's got everything under the bed. Now, Rashi in Maseches Sukkah explains that the reason why this is a demonstration of an Am Haaretz is because what he's essentially doing, he's inviting everyone to come into his bedroom and get whatever they need whenever they want. It's like an intrusive kind of, it's crass. It's crass because there's no sense of privacy or propriety. And that's why I explained the table of the Am Haaretz in the same way. It's like everyone's grubbing and reaching in over the pots in the same way that everyone's going to come and reach in under his bed. And so that's the distinction between a Talmud Chacham who knows propriety and modesty and an Am Haaretz who knows no boundaries. We'll hold it here for today. Have a wonderful